Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm bringing you a kind of belated recent reads video. I haven't been reading that much for the last couple of weeks, and I've been a bit behind on talking to you about the books that I've read, mostly the books that I've read in October. I've already talked about the German books that I've read in October, and I will link that recent reads video in the cards as well as in the description down below if you want to check it out. But in this video I want to walk you through some of the other books I read during the month of October. I have read a few books that were or are related to Victorian times. So I'm actually going to start with these books. And the first one is a very small illustrated book about fashion in the Victorian age. It's very thin, as you can see, but it's really nice and quite detailed actually for the number of pages that it has. It has, I think, almost 100 pages, and it really has a lot of original fashion plates, and it really walks you through the whole Victorian period and how fashion changed. And it's actually quite dramatic how every decade is like completely different. And I feel like this is something that often is completely amalgamated. It's like kind of put together in one pot, and like Victorian fashion is all the same, and it's, you know, all about these bustles, but it really isn't. It's really more complex than that, and I think the book does that in quite a short number of words and goes through a long period of time. And it even has different chapters of like, there's evening dress and like sportswear, which honestly is one of the most fascinating things ever, because I always feel like when people talk about the Victorian age and how women were really restricted, and I mean most like working class women were, and usually didn't have time for leisure like sports, but there were a lot of women who did do that in the upper classes, and they could do that with the outfits that they were wearing for that. And it's like this whole myth that, you know, you can't move and breathe in a corset, so you can't do anything physical. So that was really fascinating as well. And there's a little bit about bridal style as well as morning costumes, which was really fascinating. So yeah, I really like this little book, really well documented. There's also a big bibliography in the end, so I'll see if I want to dive into some of these topics more. But yeah, if you like some really nice coffee table books that are a nice first reference, and if this is something that you find interesting, you might want to check it out. It's a little book from Shire Library, and I think they have several ones from the same collection that covers different eras of fashion. Next up, I want to talk about two Victorian books that I read, two Victorian classics, and they're both by the same author, and that's H.G. Wells. I really wanted to check out The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I read as an ebook. The story of this book follows this man called Edward Prendick, and he is shipwrecked somewhere in, I think, the South Pacific Ocean, and he is then rescued by a boat on which there is a man that is carrying a lot of different animals and stuff, and it all seems quite strange. He also has slaves, and he offers Prendick to take him on this island where his associate, Dr. Moreau, is carrying some strange experiments. The thing that I found again in this book that I have gotten accustomed to with H.G. Wells's writing is that it's first very engaging writing. It's, you know, for the time it was written in, it's really, you get through it really fast. The language is not that complicated, and it is quite action-packed, I would say, for books written in that time. I mean, his books are also quite short. They're often around the 150 pages mark, and this was no different. The thing though with this book, and why I end up not really liking it, it was just okay for me, was that, without giving away too much of the plot, because I think the book does benefit from not knowing too much about it and what these weird experiments are. From my personal standpoint, and from like the personal knowledge that I have like in biology and stuff, I just absolutely could not buy any of the stuff that was described in this book. Like, it literally makes no sense, and I understand that in the times of H.G. Wells, this kind of knowledge was not there, but I honestly couldn't really get past that while reading it. I just didn't buy any of it. Another thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was, again, without going into too much spoilers, there is an element of like bodily horror in this book. And to me, it really went into this typical like Victorian freak show direction, which is really hard to read, honestly. Like, it just didn't sit well with me at all. And there's also a fair share of like racism and misogyny that I didn't feel was as strong in some of other H.G. Wells works, which was also, not that great. I did, however, enjoy some of the discussions the book is trying to make about like ethics and the fine line between man and beast and what it means for us as humans, but this was just all too overshadowed by these other aspects, which was really unfortunate because I was so looking forward to exactly these themes and how H.G. Wells explores them in that book. And then, pretty much on a whim, I decided to pick up another of H.G. Wells's books because I thought, okay, I've enjoyed some of his other books. I didn't enjoy that one. Let's try another one. Hopefully it'll be better. So I read The Time Machine. As far as I know, it's H.G. Wells's first novel, although you could argue it's a novella because, again, it's quite short. And we follow this unnamed scientist who has constructed a machine that enables him to travel to the future, I think, like in the year 800,000. And there he meets humanity, how it evolved until that time, but it is very much unlike anything he would have thought it would evolve into, without, again, going into too many spoilers. I didn't know much more than that actually going into this book, and I think it was quite good to not know too much about it. This book was enjoyable. It wasn't as great as some of H.G. Wells's other books that I've enjoyed previously, but I did enjoy looking at what this book is trying to say about topics that were very important to Wells, apparently, and that were very current in the time he was writing, which was the Industrial Revolution. And he is very much in this book exploring the divide between the working class and the upper class and the pitfalls of like capitalism pushed to an extreme. So I think, apart from the fact that it's supposed to be like one of the first time travel novels, I think it has some really interesting things to say about these topics from a historical standpoint. The story itself, honestly, was fine, but sometimes fell a bit flat for me, and it fell flat especially in moments where I felt like H.G. Wells was trying to say like, oh my god, look what happened. And I was like, okay. So yeah, again, I enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, but I think especially if you do enjoy the time traveling genre in books, then I think alone from this standpoint, you should check out this book. But, it's a short read and it was a fun one. Since I had some trouble focusing on reading long things, and as you can see, all the books I've mentioned up until now were very short, I continued with this idea of going for short, fast reads that kind of kept me entertained. And so I went back to my good old historical fiction middle grade book series that I know from childhood, the Garin-Trousseau books from Evelyne Brisou-Pellen. And this time I read L'Anneau du Prince Noir, The Ring of the Black Prince. This kind of surprised me because it's definitely a darker story compared to some of the other books from the series that I read. In this story, we follow Garin as he is traveling through the southwest of France, and the date is like, I think 1355. So this is very much in the 100-year-old war. And Garin is thrust into this region that is very prosperous, but is getting attacked by the Prince of Wales, Edward of Woodstock, who is basically pillaging the whole region. So in this book there was a lot of details about sieges of big cities such as Carcassonne, which was really fascinating. You could again see that the author is really doing her research into medieval history and techniques that were used. But what I also really appreciated was that she didn't really shy away from the horrors that come with like a region at war that is getting pillaged. And actually along his way, Garin is accompanied by a few people who experience huge losses, both human losses, people that they loved, but also their livelihoods because of all these pillagings. And so I really appreciated that as well. I am definitely looking forward to continuing with these series and seeing which elements of history from the 14th century Evelyne Brisou-Pellen explores in the next books, because I'm getting the feeling that she is very much trying to address different elements of medieval history through the different books in the series. So I am really looking forward to that. And that's it already from me for this recent reads video. I would love to know what you've been reading these days. Have you been struggling with concentrating on books? How has your Victorian reading been going? And maybe your nonfiction November reading? Let me know everything in the comments down below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!